Sergeant Logan Pierce had never foreseen the loss of his steadfast K-9 companion in a terrifying ambush, but Titan's actions behind enemy lines would alter the course of events. Marooned in a forbidding desert with adversaries drawing near, Titan undertook a mission that tested the very boundaries of allegiance, duty, and bravery. Prepare to be captivated by a connection so profound it overrode all commands and transformed a solitary war dog into a figure of legend. The desert sun bore down with oppressive force, scorching the sand under the footwear of Sergeant Logan Pierce as he stood next to Titan, his combat-experienced K-9 ally. An unnatural quiet hung in the atmosphere, too silent for reassurance. As the wind murmured through the military outpost, blowing dust into their eyes, Logan readjusted his helmet and looked down at Titan, who sat attentively at his side, ears reacting to the slightest noise. They had undertaken numerous missions together, yet something about this day felt unusual. A sense of oppression weighed on Logan's chest, unrelated to the intense heat. He recalled their first encounter. Titan, the smallest of the litter, more reserved, yet possessing a gleam in his eyes that signaled to Logan a greater destiny. Their bond had solidified swiftly and profoundly through relentless training exercises, arduous obstacle courses, and field drills that stretched their capabilities. Titan had consistently demonstrated his worth. However, it was more than mere obedience or skill. It was the way Titan would look at him in their quiet interludes, when the clamor of conflict subsided, leaving only mutual comprehension. Titan was not merely a partner. He was Logan's stabilizing force, the one creature who had remained by his side through every difficulty. Now, whispers circulated around the encampment like persistent insects. An intelligence operation deeper into hostile territory, more perilous than any they had previously encountered. The opposition was altering its methods, setting snares not only for soldiers but also for minds, a form of psychological warfare. Logan had picked up on these murmurs. Even Titan, usually composed, appeared agitated. He incessantly scanned the horizon, his tail lowered, his body taut. Something was imminent, and both could sense it profoundly. That evening, as the orange sun descended beneath the dunes, casting elongated shadows across the sandbags, Logan sat with Titan at the camp's edge. He ran a hand over the dog's scarred back, a memento of a bullet that had narrowly missed his heart on their previous mission. Titan rested his head on Logan's thigh, as if perceiving the thoughts swirling within him. "I have a strong premonition about this one, buddy," Logan murmured. Titan remained unflinching, merely gazing into the distance, concentrated, expectant. The following morning, the directives arrived. They were to go in first for reconnaissance with minimal support. Logan's heart pounded as he and Titan boarded the primary Humvee. He could not dispel the notion that their destination would change everything. And deep within, a quiet apprehension had already begun to fester. What if this mission was one from which they would not return? Something was on the verge of going disastrously wrong. The line of vehicles advanced in an unnerving hush, the tires grinding over parched gravel as dust eddied through the confined canyon passages. Logan sat rigidly in the foremost Humvee, Titan next to him, gaze fixed forward. The objective was straightforward, too straightforward. Collect intelligence on a suspected insurgent stronghold and withdraw before dusk. Yet, in warfare, simplicity often concealed a more sinister reality. As the vehicles wound further between the rock formations, the radio emitted faint static before falling silent. No one uttered a word. Everyone sensed it. Something was amiss. Titan emitted a low growl, his body abruptly tensing. Logan's hand instinctively moved towards his sidearm. Then pandemonium. The deafening roar of an explosion shattered the quiet, a burst of orange flame illuminating the sky as the final vehicle in the convoy was struck. Screams ensued, intermingled with gunfire that reverberated off the canyon walls. Bullets ripped into metal and fragments of rock rained down as concealed insurgents initiated fire from elevated positions. The convoy had entered a kill zone. "Take cover," Logan yelled, grasping Titan's harness as he forced open the door and rolled behind the vehicle. Titan barked, loud and sharp, rushing through the open fire to pull a wounded soldier to safety, his teeth clamped onto the man's protective vest. The soldier gasped, clutching his leg, his eyes wide with astonishment at the dog who had just rescued him. Smoke permeated the air, reducing visibility. The canyon transformed into a chaotic battleground of confusion and flames. Frantic orders shouted into radios failed to transmit. Vehicles exploded sequentially, and the cries of pinned-down men filled the spaces between detonations. Then the command came, fall back. Retreat immediately. All units, pull out now. Logan wavered. Where's Titan? He shouted, his eyes searching the smoke. A flash of fur darted through the haze. Titan was still navigating the firefight, checking on each injured soldier, refusing to withdraw until he confirmed everyone was clear. Logan's breath caught in his throat. He started to advance, but an explosion threw him backward, the blast showering his face with dust and gravel. Dazed and bleeding, he was pulled into a retreating vehicle by two other soldiers. We have to go now, one of them yelled, dragging him in as the vehicle sped out of the kill zone. Logan's heart hammered in his ears, muffling the chaos behind him. Through the rear window, the final image seared into his memory, Titan vanishing into the smoke, still running towards the wounded, utterly oblivious that he was being left behind. And just like that, Titan was gone. The base was a scene of frenetic activity and disorder when the damaged convoy made its return. Medical personnel rushed to the injured, sirens wailed, and the distant drone of helicopters permeated the atmosphere. Yet Logan registered none of it. Slumped on a stretcher, his uniform torn and stained with blood, his thoughts were consumed by a single notion. Titan remained out there, somewhere within enemy territory, alone. As a medical attendant applied gauze to the gash above his eyebrow, Logan brushed her hand aside and attempted to rise. His legs gave way. Two soldiers caught his arms, steering him towards the emergency medical tent, but all he could contemplate was that final moment, the way Titan had disappeared into the smoke, still performing his duties while the world crumbled around him. You don't understand, Logan muttered, his voice raspy through a parched throat. He's still in there. He's trying to help. We have to go back. But the reply was cold and pragmatic. He's just a dog, Pierce. You're fortunate any of us survived. Those words stung more acutely than any physical injury. Just a dog. As if Titan hadn't rescued half the unit during missions no soldier dared undertake. As if Titan hadn't extracted a dying man from a collapsed structure under sniper fire. As if he were merely an animal. Logan wanted to cry out, but no one was paying attention. His commanding officer had already given the directive, no return journeys. The area was now deemed enemy-controlled. Anyone left behind was considered lost. That evening, Logan sat by himself on a cot, gazing at Titan's collar, which had somehow been dislodged during the escape and ended up in the Humvee. He clutched it as if it were a lifeline. Every indentation, every mark on that metal tag narrated a story. Missions, dangers, near misses, they were all engraved upon it like combat scars. Just before daylight, a scout rushed into the command tent, his eyes wide. He spoke rapidly, describing an unusual observation from the ruins. A German shepherd moving swiftly through the debris, silent and vigilant. He didn't appear injured, the scout whispered. He looked like he was searching for something. Logan's breath hitched. That wasn't merely survival, that was intent, purpose. No one knew how to interpret it. Some dismissed it, others chuckled. But Logan did not. He recognized that expression. Titan wasn't aimlessly wandering, he wasn't lost. He was performing his usual task. Completing a mission. The sole question was, what mission? The remnants of the canyon lay silent now, but beneath the fractured stone and twisted metal, a shadowy figure moved with resolve. Titan, coated in dirt, panting, yet focused, navigated the debris of the battlefield with the meticulousness of a seasoned soldier. He was not without purpose. His eyes were keen, surveying every fissure, attending to every subtle noise. His instincts, refined by years of missions, indicated that danger still lurked. Yet, a more profound impulse guided him, not merely survival but a mission. One not conveyed through commands or hand signals, but one ingrained in loyalty. As the sun descended, Titan followed a scent trail left during the ambush. Singed fabric, engine oil, blood. Then, another aroma captured his attention. Unfamiliar, desperate, human. Titan altered his course, tail lowered, body taut. It was not Logan, but someone else vulnerable. His pace increased, paused silent on the rubble. In a nearby alley, concealed between dilapidated walls, he located them. Three children huddled beside a broken cart, their faces streaked with ash, eyes wide with fear. A woman, likely their mother, lay nearby, unconscious, her arm crudely bandaged with a torn piece of fabric. The children recoiled as Titan entered the light, their small hands shielding their faces. But Titan did not bark. He sat motionless, calm, and waited. The smallest child peered from between his fingers, meeting Titan's gaze. After a few tense moments, he crawled forward and gently extended a hand. Titan remained still. Then, the child pressed his forehead against the dog's fur and whispered something soft, something only he could discern. That night, Titan did not depart. He patrolled the perimeter, alert to every sound, growling softly when distant footsteps approached. At dawn, he foraged, returning with partially eaten rations from an abandoned pack and guiding the children to a fractured water pipe. He evolved from a soldier's partner into their protector. Word began to circulate. Whispers among terrified villagers and scattered survivors of an enigmatic German shepherd moving through war zones like a phantom. They referred to him as the Phantom Dog. Some asserted he led them to safety. Others claimed he repelled insurgents in the darkness. But no one could ascertain his origin or his objective. And still, deep within, Titan persisted in following the faintest trace of a man he refused to relinquish. Sleep eluded Logan. Night after night, he would sit bolt upright on his cot, gazing at the tense entrance as if expecting Titan to come trotting through at any moment. The collar still dangled from a chain around his neck, heavy with memories. Every clink of metal, every bark from another dog at the base, felt like a twisting knife in his chest. Guilt gnawed at him. He had abandoned his partner, the one being who never wavered in placing itself between him and peril. And now no one was willing to return. Each morning brought the identical message from command. No rescue, no deviation from orders. The zone remained dangerous. Yet, the reports continued to surface. One civilian asserted he was guided to safety by a German shepherd. Another stated a dog guarded a collapsed building where survivors were subsequently located. The description was always consistent. Same eyes, same physique. But the military dismissed them as coincidences, myths. To Logan, they were lifelines. He sat opposite Captain Rhodes the following morning, his voice strained but steady. He's alive. He's rescuing people. He's out there risking everything while we remain behind fences. Just provide me with a unit. I'll find him. Rhodes didn't even flinch. This isn't about your dog, Sergeant. We have more significant concerns. You're aware of the new intelligence. There's a supply line under threat. You expect us to sacrifice men for a ghost story. Logan's fists tightened beneath the table. He's not a ghost. He's a soldier. Outside the tent, Corporal Mia Alvarez waited, having overheard the entire exchange. She had served alongside Logan for years and knew Titan as well. She recalled the day the dog had pulled her from debris when their squad was ambushed in Fallujah. She wasn't prone to sentimentality, but even she couldn't dismiss the image of Titan out there, protecting strangers, without support, without a handler, without a way out. That night, Logan packed his equipment in silence. He wasn't going to request permission again. If it meant going AWOL, so be it. He would take the chance. Titan had done it for him countless times. Mia entered the tent quietly, tossing her own pack onto the cot. You're not undertaking this by yourself. For the first time in days, Logan allowed himself a moment of hope. 2 soldiers, one promise, they would bring Titan home or perish in the attempt. The base hummed with unease as speculations circulated more rapidly than official directives. A young scout from a neighboring outpost had come back, eyes wide with shock, trembling, holding a blood-soaked scarf. I don't know how else to describe it, he kept saying. I was trapped under the wreckage, unable to move. Then this dog, this German shepherd, he excavated me, growled to keep me quiet when insurgents passed by, then vanished like a phantom. Senior officers dismissed his account, claiming the soldier was suffering from a concussion, hallucinating. But Logan and Mia were not so quick to disregard it, particularly when the specifics matched: the dog's movements, his silence, the scar beneath one eye. Titan's scar. That same day, a local interpreter delivered even more alarming information. Word had spread through villages. Children recounted tales of a spirit dog that alerted them to seek shelter before gunfire began. An elderly man swore he witnessed the dog drag an injured woman half a mile through enemy-controlled streets. These were no longer mere anecdotes, they were consistent, detailed, verifiable sightings. But with this news came a darker element. The interpreter leaned closer, his voice hushed. There is talk the insurgents are aware of him. They call him the American Ghost. They believe he is part of some clandestine operation. They are hunting him now. Logan's heart constricted. Titan wasn't merely surviving, he was exposing himself, saving lives, making himself a target. And if the enemy genuinely believed he possessed secrets, they wouldn't just kill him, they would use him, break him. He burst into Captain Rhodes's office one final time, throwing the interpreter's notes onto the desk. You said he was a ghost. He's not. He's alive, and the enemy is closing in. Rhodes scanned the paper slowly, his customary coldness diminishing, replaced by something else, doubt, concern, then finally, quiet determination. You have 72 hours. No official approval, no air support. This operation does not exist on paper. You are on your own. Logan did not waver. Neither did Mia. That night, under a starless sky, they packed weapons, provisions, and hope. 2 soldiers slipping away from the edge of the base, armed with nothing but resolve and a prayer. Somewhere out there, Titan was still fighting. And now they were going to fight for him. The darkness enveloped them as Logan and Mia ventured into the red zone, hostile territory fraught with peril, silence, and secrets. Each step felt more burdensome the further they progressed. Every whisper of wind sounded like an approaching footfall. The base was far behind them now, there was no retreat, only endless desolation, scorched terrain, and one seemingly impossible hope that Titan was still alive and that they were not too late. They proceeded with caution through charred villages and deserted alleyways, each bearing the scars of conflict, shattered windows, burned doorways, remnants of interrupted lives. Amidst the silence, a sudden rustle brought them to an abrupt halt. A figure emerged from the shadows unarmed, with wide eyes and trembling hands. A boy, perhaps 12, his face smeared with dirt, carried a folded piece of fabric. He did not speak English, but when he extended the cloth, Logan's breath caught in his throat. It was a torn fragment of a military-issue K9 vest, Titans. Using broken Arabic and gentle gestures, the boy pointed towards the hills beyond the town. A hand-drawn map followed, lines etched into the dirt with a stick, indicating old drainage tunnels and an abandoned medical facility. The boy touched his chest and then mimicked Titan's gait, strong, steady, proud. Mia knelt, looking into his eyes. Did he help you? The boy nodded, tears welling up. This was more than confirmation, it was a trail, a direct link to Titan's path. But danger was intertwined with it. The boy cautioned them, insurgents had been observing the same area, attempting to track the dog. They believed he was trained to transport military secrets, they thought capturing him could alter the course of the conflict. The gravity of it all weighed heavily on Logan's stomach. Titan wasn't just surviving anymore, he was a moving target, a hunted phantom. The enemy was desperate to capture him. As they continued, the scenery changed from village to wasteland. Craters from airstrikes pockmarked the ground, and power lines dangled like skeletal remains in the wind. But Logan's resolve remained unshaken. Titan was close, he could feel it in the sand, in the wind, in the moments of stillness between their footsteps. They reached the edge of the hills just before dawn, pausing on a ridge overlooking a valley scarred with metal and smoke. Mia raised her binoculars, scanning the ruins. Then she whispered, "Logan, there's movement." And just below, beyond the rusted remnants of a collapsed radio tower, a figure darted between shadows, low to the ground, fast, silent. It wasn't a man, it wasn't a soldier. It was Titan, still running, still alive, still on a mission no one fully comprehended. Titan moved like a phantom through the desolation, navigating between sharp-edged walls and decaying stones with a liquid agility that appeared almost supernatural. Logan observed from afar, his breath caught in his throat. Every fiber of his being urged him to call out, to rush forward, to shatter the silence, but an instinct made him hesitate. Because Titan was not by himself. Just beyond the fractured shell of an overturned bus, a group of civilians huddled low, women, children, 2 elderly men, all grimy, pale, and barely able to stand. And they were not concealed by chance. Titan stood between them and the outside world, like a guardian. He was no longer merely a soldier's companion, he was a protector of the vulnerable. Logan and Mia crouched lower, moving noiselessly to a superior observation point. The civilians appeared frail, spectral, their eyes hollowed, their movements sluggish. And then Titan did something that unraveled Logan's composure. He approached a small girl, perhaps 7 years old, and gently pushed a water container towards her with his nose. She wrapped her arms around his neck, clinging to him as if he were the sole remaining bastion of safety in the world. Logan wiped a trembling hand across his mouth, struggling to regain his composure. He's keeping them alive, Mia whispered, and doing it better than most humans would. They approached slowly, cautiously. When Titan finally detected them, he didn't charge, he didn't bark. He simply stood tall, his ears pricked, his tail frozen in midwag, his eyes locked on Logan's. And in that instant, it was as if no time had elapsed, recognition, relief, but not capitulation. Titan remained motionless until Logan knelt, extended a hand, and uttered a single word, home. Titan padded forward, slowly, almost tentatively. Then he pressed his head into Logan's chest, emitting a low, almost human sound, half growl, half whimper. Logan wrapped his arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in Titan's fur, his voice cracking, "You stubborn, brave son of a," but the reunion was cut short. A woman behind them began to weep softly. Mia turned to ascertain the cause and immediately saw the issue. One of the children had an injured leg, wrapped in makeshift bandages soaked through with blood. Another child was feverish. These people could not walk, let alone run, and they were still deep within enemy territory. Logan stood, gripping Titan's harness once more. He stayed because they couldn't leave. That's why he didn't come back, Mia's voice was somber. And now neither can we. A distant rumble shattered the silence. It wasn't thunder, it was a convoy of enemy patrols, and they were drawing nearer. The rumble of approaching engines grew louder with each passing second, reverberating off the fire-damaged structures like a tolling alarm. Logan crouched beside Titan, scanning the horizon. Dust plumes in the distance confirmed their fears. Multiple trucks, armored and armed, were closing in. The villagers huddled together, clutching their children more tightly, their eyes darting towards Logan as if silently pleading for him to make a decision, to lead, to rescue. Mia spread out the map the boy had sketched in the dirt days earlier. "There's a bridge," she said, tracing a finger along a route etched between ravines and fractured roadways, 2 miles southeast. "If we reach it," Command said they'd attempt to send a helicopter. "But we have to move now." Logan assessed the injured, the girl with the fever, the man with a broken arm, the limping child whose foot was wrapped in an oily cloth. They wouldn't survive a sprint, yet remaining meant certain death. There was no doubt they had to try. Titan paced in a confined circle, his ears sharp, constantly sniffing the air. He paused only when Logan met his gaze and whispered, "Show us the way." They moved like phantoms, following Titan's guidance through side alleys and partially destroyed dwellings. Each step was an agony for the wounded, but no one complained. Children walked barefoot over broken glass without a sound. The only noise was Titan's occasional bark, sharp, short, a warning to remain still as patrols passed dangerously close. Then they reached the ravine. The dried riverbed, once a vital artery for the town, was now a jagged channel of debris and the rusted skeletons of long-abandoned vehicles. It offered concealment but also peril. Logan signaled everyone down into the trench. They would use it to circumvent enemy checkpoints if fortune favored them. The patrols wouldn't anticipate civilians risking the narrow passage. Halfway through, they encountered a wall of silence. Titan froze. Logan held his breath. A glint above, rifle barrels protruding from behind rocks. "Insurgents." Mia gripped Logan's arm. "They're waiting for us to cross the far edge." They couldn't retreat, couldn't advance. The bridge, their sole hope, was still a mile distant. Then Titan did something unforeseen. He broke away from the group, darting into the overgrown vegetation above. Moments later, barking erupted in the opposite direction, chaos, gunfire, shouting. The guards scattered, pursuing the sound. Logan knew instantly Titan had just become the decoy, and he had no idea if they would ever see him again. They ran, not from panic, but from sheer desperation. Titan's diversionary tactic had been successful, at least for the moment, but Logan understood how ephemeral such an opportunity could be. The civilians, previously too feeble to speak, now pushed themselves beyond their limits. Children were carried on shoulders, injured feet dragged through the dust, yet no one faltered, no one slackened their pace. Titan had bought them precious time, and no one intended to squander a single second of it. The bridge appeared ahead, a contorted structure of corroded steel and fractured concrete, spanning a ravine deep enough to be swallowed by. It had once served as a crucial military passage, long since bombed to near ruin. Now it was barely intact, its center sagging, sections missing, its railings torn away. But it was their only option. On the other side lay the extraction point, on the other side lay survival. Logan approached first, testing the edges, sensing the vibrations beneath his boots. "One at a time, distribute the weight," he instructed, his voice low and steady. No abrupt movements. One by one, they crossed, a mother clutching her son, an elderly man gripping a child's hand. Mia helped guide the frail, whispering words of encouragement. Logan never took his eyes off the far end. He kept his gaze fixed on the hills, awaiting a signal, anything. Halfway across, the structure groaned, the metal contorting beneath their feet. A section gave way under a man's step, and he screamed as his leg plunged through. Logan grabbed him just in time, pulling him up, bloodied but alive. The sound reverberated into the distance, and from behind them, the roar of an engine sounded again. They were spotted. Gunfire erupted, bullets striking the side of the bridge, sending chunks of concrete flying. The last civilians ducked low, crawling the remainder of the way. Mia returned fire, shielding them. Logan shouted over the chaos, "Go! Don't stop!" The final child had just reached the far edge when a shadow emerged from the smoke. Limping, blood on his side, panting, but still moving. Titan! Logan's heart nearly ceased. He sprinted back onto the bridge, meeting Titan midway. The dog collapsed for a moment, then rose again. Logan lifted him into his arms, feeling the warm blood soak through his shirt. "You came back," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You came back." With Titan cradled against him, Logan ran, the bridge shaking, enemy fire illuminating the sky behind them. Just as they crossed the final beam, an explosion ripped through the support below. The center of the bridge collapsed in a thunderous roar, completely severing the path behind them. The enemy would not pursue, but Titan was bleeding heavily, and Logan knew they were not yet safe. They reached the shelter of the trees just as the gunfire finally subsided behind them, replaced by an eerie quiet. Titan lay inert in Logan's arms, his breathing shallow, eyes partially closed. His fur was saturated with blood from a wound just above his hind leg, where a projectile had grazed deeply. Logan collapsed to his knees behind the undergrowth, shielding Titan's body with his own, pressing down on the wound with trembling hands. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You've come too far. Don't you dare leave now." Mia knelt beside them, tearing strips of fabric from her uniform to staunch the bleeding, but even she knew it was insufficient. Titan's body twitched in short spasms, and for the first time in Logan's life, he saw fear in those eyes. Eyes that had confronted firestorms, explosions, and death without flinching. Behind them, the rescued civilians gathered, weary and broken, but alive. One of the mothers stepped forward, her hands trembling, offering a bottle of water, her lips quivering with words she couldn't articulate in English. Her son followed, holding up a crumpled, sweat-stained drawing. A crude depiction of Titan standing on a hill, surrounded by smiling stick figures. Logan stared at it for a long moment before clutching it to his chest. Then, static crackled in Mia's earpiece. "Bravo 09, do you copy? This is Hawkeye. We're 10 minutes out. Signal your position for extraction. Repeat, signal your position." Mia responded instantly, launching a flare into the sky. The red streak exploded overhead, visible even through the trees. But Logan didn't move. He was cradling Titan tightly now, whispering something repeatedly. Mia leaned in to hear. "It wasn't just instinct, was it?" he muttered. "You weren't just surviving." She frowned. "What are you saying?" Logan reached down to Titan's collar. Tucked beneath the tag, barely visible, was a microchip device, not military-issued, not standard. A custom storage chip, heat-sealed to blend in. He recognized it instantly. It was one of theirs, experimental field technology used to carry encrypted files through enemy zones. Titan had been carrying it the entire time. Logan looked up, his breath catching in his throat. He didn't just run off. He knew. He knew he had to protect this. The realization hit Mia like a storm. The strange movements, the evasions, the loyalty. Titan hadn't been wandering. He had been delivering something that couldn't fall into enemy hands. From the sky, the faint thumping of helicopter blades grew louder. But the mission wasn't over, because now everyone wanted to know, what exactly was Titan carrying that was so important, so secret, that this dog chose to risk his life for it? And why had no one told Logan? The answers would change everything, if Titan survived long enough to reveal them. The helicopter descended in a torrent of dust and wind, lashing through the trees like a tempest. Soldiers leaped out, weapons raised, eyes scanning for adversaries. But all they encountered was a beleaguered group of civilians, a soldier with blood streaming down his arm, and a man kneeling in the dirt, cradling a bleeding dog as if it were the last fragment of his being. Logan remained motionless until the medic shouted, "We've got to get him in now." They rushed Titan into the chopper, an oxygen mask secured to his snout, and four-line in place, a pressure dressing tightened over the wound. Logan stayed near, gripping the edge of the stretcher with white knuckles. Opposite him, Mia sat holding the microchip, her expression indecipherable. No one dared to speak the questions hanging in the air. What was on it? Why was Titan carrying it? Who issued the order? The flight was tense, silent, the weight of everything they had endured pressing down more heavily than the rotor blades overhead. As the base came into view below, a surge of emotion welled in Logan's chest. They had succeeded, but at what price? When the chopper touched down, Titan was rushed into the medical bay. Logan attempted to follow, but the doctors restrained him. "You've done enough," one of them said. "Now let us do our part." Hours passed. Logan didn't sit, didn't speak, just paced the waiting area, the collar still clutched in his hand. He couldn't erase the image of Titan's eyes slowly closing on that hilltop, the breath leaving his lungs in shallow gasps. He had carried them all to safety, civilians, intel, hope itself, and now he lay behind those doors fighting a battle of his own. Finally, the surgeon emerged. His face was drawn but calm. "He's stable." "Barely, but he's a fighter." Logan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, his knees nearly buckling. Later that evening, a high-ranking intelligence officer arrived to retrieve the chip. Logan stepped in front of Mia before she could hand it over. "Tell me what was on it," he demanded. The officer sighed. "Satellite positions, names, supply routes, and one thing more, proof of a leak. Someone from our own side gave up the convoy's route. The ambush wasn't random." Logan's stomach churned. All this time, Titan hadn't just been protecting people, he had been protecting the truth. The next morning, the rescued civilians gathered near the infirmary waiting for news. Children held handmade signs. One read, "Thank you, Titan." Another had a paw print drawn in crayon with a heart around it. And when Titan was wheeled out on a padded cart, head bandaged, leg in a sling, the crowd erupted, not with cheers, but with tears. Quiet, grateful sobs for the dog who'd never left them behind. Logan walked beside the cart, his hand resting gently on Titan's side. No medals, no speeches. Just silence and a shared understanding that heroism isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks on four legs, disappears into smoke, and returns carrying the weight of the world so the rest of us don't have to.